Hello, guys. I'm Anna Komashko, the host of EcoStock Show. And today, our guest is Ryan Condron, who is the CEO at Titan Industries. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I know that you have quite extensive experience in mining, in crypto mining, and particularly in Bitcoin mining. And so I think that we have a lot of things to discuss. Our listeners know and love Bitcoin mining. So I think that we'll have an interesting discussion. And if you could start with telling us a bit about yourself, about your background, and how you came into this Web3 space.
Okay, so that goes way back. So in 2012, I was working as a lead engineer at a university here in Southern California, and my buddy Kyle, came to me and told me about this thing called Bitcoin, and we'd go for walks every day on our breaks, and he would just, we'd geek out about different things, and he started telling me about this thing called Bitcoin and how you could mine it and how we were, hashing the SHA-256 algorithm. And I was super skeptical at first. I thought we were brute forcing like state secrets for the Chinese government or something. But as we started getting more into it and started digging through the different forums, started realizing that was just very cool technology. We tried to convince the head of the college at that time to let us use the computer labs to mine, and he wouldn't let us do it. So we just started doing it on our own. We started kind of figuring out, and we found some other coins to mine, like Litecoin and Feathercoin, and a few other altcoins at the time that were on different exchanges, and we just started scaling from there. We started realizing that it was actually faster to ROI on our equipment if we mined some of the altcoins and then sold them into Bitcoin. At the time, our target ROI was around 30 days. So we would, buy equipment, we would mine Litecoin or some of the other altcoins, and we'd sell them. And we realized that at any given moment, it was sometimes more profitable to mine one coin than another. Typically, the difficulty on Bitcoin was so high that we would never mine Bitcoin directly. And that actually, those profitability calculations turned into a site called Coin Wars that Kyle launched in early 2013. We worked on it, we iterated it a bit through 2013. And then I launched a site called Pool Wars later that year. So we ran about 80 different mining pools, 40 SHA pools, 40 script pools, wrote a lot of profitability switching algorithms, wrote a couple cloud mining sites, but yeah, I ended up running those 80 mining pools through 2013, 14, and 15. And then ended up launching Titan in 2017 with the team at Block. And the goal of Titan from the very beginning has been to make mining as easy and optimal as possible. Started out with mining management software, and now we've moved on to just better mining pool software.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And did you have anything like your own equipment, like a mining farm at Titan at that time? Yeah.
I mean, there was for Titan. No, we purchased equipment with Titan, and we have it hosted at different facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, we were buying graphics cards and ASICs, and we're shoving them in our garage. I remember when the S3s came out with Bitmain. Kyle and I had bought a ton of them, and Kyle had pretty much maxed out his garage. I had packed the S3s into the addition of my house, and I had extension cords literally running all over my house trying to get to every circuit of my house. So it literally sounded like a jet engine in one of the bedrooms. I remember one day some of the miners were mining kind of slow. And I went up there, and the door was closed, all the windows were open, fans were blowing, and it was 145 degrees in that room. So I basically created an oven.
Yeah, I can imagine. And did I hear you correctly that you say that mining difficulty was high at the time?
Oh, on Bitcoin, yeah. So Bitcoin's always been fairly difficult to solo mine. Even in the beginning, in 2012, it kind of turned the corner, especially when the Butterfly Labs ASICs started coming out, and we really started seeing the first ASIC chips hit the market. the difficulty jumped substantially. So you just couldn't solo mine Bitcoin like you used to. At the time, block rewards were 50 Bitcoin a block. Then we got the halving down to 25. So it just didn't make sense to solo mine Bitcoin at the time. So that's why we were solo mining Litecoin and solo mining some of the others. It was few and far between coins at the time. In 2013, we saw like this crazy explosion where at first we had a couple hundred coins, and then we started seeing more, thousands of coins because people just kept forking the repositories on GitHub.
Yeah. And as you've been in this industry for so long, how do you see where it goes?
It just keeps escalating.
It's getting harder and harder to mine, but so don't you think that in some time it will be just absolutely useless?
It's just different scales. I would never say it's useless. I would say that we're finding different scales at which to mine, and we're finding different use cases for mining. So a use case that came up about 6 to 7 years ago that we really didn't anticipate was this idea of stabilizing a power grid using mining. So historically on power grids, you do what's called load following because you can only produce electricity when someone's using electricity. So what we'll do is we'll have coal plants or natural gas plants or nuclear power plants, and we'll up and down the output, or we'll granularly tune the output of these power production facilities in order to match the need on the grid. So, for example, during the summer, when everyone's running their AC units, the need on the grid is way higher than in the winter when no one's really running their AC or everyone's running their gas heaters or whatnot.
Yeah.
So the load on the grid fluctuates throughout the year. So having natural gas, having coal, having nuclear power plants to be able to granularly tune that is really important. But currently, there's a huge shift to renewables. So you have solar panels, you have wind, you have hydroelectric. Now, hydroelectric, you can granularly tune just by water flow. It's not as easy, but you can do it. Solar and wind, you cannot really do granular tuning. So you can't balance a grid with load following. It's either on or it's off, right? So it's either a solar panel is plugged in or a solar panel is unplugged. So there's no real granular tuning. Now here in the US, the frequency of our electricity grid is 60 hertz. If you go 0.05 hertz over or 0.05 hertz under, you have what's called a blackout. Because the power going on the grid is either too much or not enough for the consumer electronics, or just really anything. So I feel like I'm giving you a fire hose of information here. So feel free to stop me if you have questions. Essentially, to just sum it all up, I don't believe Bitcoin mining is going away anytime soon. We're finding out that it solves a huge issue with the renewable power grid, where we can actually ramp up and ramp down power usage of miners based on how much electricity is being used on the grid at any moment. So because of the novel uses that we're finding like that, I really do think Bitcoin mining is going to be a key part of our power infrastructure in the very near future.
Okay, great. And could you tell us a bit about what decentralized hash power trading is, what your platform is planning to do?
So we're really jumping down the rabbit hole now. So decentralized hash power is this idea. It's hash power is created in a central location, and we can't really decentralize hash power. So the problem with the Bitcoin network that we're seeing is you have more and more centralization around the mining, right? These mining facilities are getting larger and larger. And the reason for this is essentially you have a toaster looking device, and you show this toaster to someone and you say, if you plug this in, it will print money. And well, someone with a lot of money is like, okay, well, how many can I have and where can I put them? So you have a lot of investment groups, a lot of wealthy people around the world are buying hundreds of thousands of these devices and they're plugging them in wherever they can. Well, typically where they can plug them in is places with very cheap electricity where they can negotiate large power contracts, often out in the middle of nowhere, or places that just have a surplus of energy. So anywhere there's a hydroelectric dam, anywhere there's a nuclear power plant, stuff like that. So what we have is larger and larger mining facilities around the world producing hash rate. So this is becoming more centralized. To escalate it even further, we have just a few mining pools actually in the world that produce Bitcoin blocks. So right now, the 4 top mining pools in the world produce over 90% of the Bitcoin blocks. So if I were to point to 4 decision makers on the network that decide which transactions get processed and in what order, there's essentially 4 entities on Earth. So that's not very decentralized. So we had to take a step back. In 2017, I wrote a paper called The Decentralization of Control. This idea that even though you can't necessarily dictate where hash rate is going to be centralized or decentralized, you could actually take the control of that hash rate and decentralize it. And that was the whole premise of the Lumerin network, was this idea that if you have a facility in the middle of Texas with 100,000 devices, either one person in Texas could decide where all 100,000 devices are getting mined or the hash rate's getting sent to, or that person could sell off the rights to that hash rate in a decentralized market and essentially have 100,000 different people controlling 100,000 different devices around the world anonymously. Now those new 100,000 people get to decide where that hash rate goes, what pool they mine against, what transactions go into a block. That's creating greater amounts of decentralization and security for a network. And that's really the goal. That's where we want to be. So all that to say, the Lumerin project is a decentralized marketplace for buying and selling hash rate. So you can be anywhere in the world, completely anonymous, and you can use an ERC20 token to purchase hash power. And in real time, you will have hash power stream from a miner somewhere else in the world directly through your node, and then you can mine with it and earn real Bitcoin. So that's the general premise. And if your eyes haven't glazed over and you're not entirely bored, then hats off to you, because it's pretty deep down the rabbit hole.
Okay, and is it necessary that the people who would supply those hash rate, do they have to be just like physical entities, or can those be legal entities?
Yeah, the people supplying the hash rate can really be, a kid with a miner plugged in his garage, or it can be a massive mining facility in the middle of Texas. Obviously, the mining facility in the middle of Texas is going to have greater reason for selling their hash rate, whether they want to hedge their risk, they want to sell at a premium. There's different reasons why they might want to sell, but it can really be anyone that is producing hash rate can participate. The vision of the Lumerin network is really to create a hash power grid, if you will. So right now in the world, we have very local electrical grids. So there is no global electrical grid because everything has to be physically tied together. But what we can do, because we have essentially a global internet, we can create a global hash power grid. So you can translate a very local commodity, which is electricity, into a global decentralized commodity, which is hash power. And this is actually why we often call hash power the first truly decentralized commodity, or we can refer to it as a super commodity, because it can be transmitted anywhere in the world instantly, and it actually has real value to controlling it.
Okay, and I was just thinking, if we at ECAS do have our own hash power, we have our mining devices, is it possible for us to sort of supply that hash power through your
Absolutely.
platform?
And you'll possibly make more money doing it by selling it on an open marketplace than you would mining directly against the Bitcoin network yourself.
It's interesting. I think we would need to discuss it later. Great. And I know that right now you are on the test net. Am I correct? And
Yeah, so
you are about to launch it.
we rolled out testnet back in the spring. So we had about 16,000 original signups. We have a pretty good core community that's been testing it and helping us out. So we're now gearing up for a mainnet launch. We've decided that we're going to be launching on Arbitrum. It makes more sense as far as cost of transactions and speed of transactions. So we're excited. We're planning to have it online by the end of September. We're talking to several very large miners and different entities in the mining space to join us as initial launch partners. And we're really looking forward to getting the initial MVP marketplace up and going. It's not an easy puzzle to solve. It's kind of you have a chicken and egg problem where you have buyers and sellers at the same time. You're trying to build both sides of the market, so it's not necessarily easy. But with the mining partners and the community that we have currently in place, we're pretty excited.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see how it's gonna work. And actually, yeah, also I was also thinking about some challenges that we have in our mining business, like when the bear market comes, the equipment becomes cheap, right? And when we go into the bull run, then the equipment becomes more expensive. So people who would be supplying the hash power, they would be also able to like put their own price, whether they want to make it
Yep. So you get to set the
cheaper.
price how you want to sell it. We've seen this historically through the years is the equipment manufacturers aren't selling based on the cost of production of the equipment. They're selling based on the proposed profitability of the equipment.
Yeah.
We tracked this with Bitmain for several years that their prices actually reflected about a 90-day ROI. So if the price of Bitcoin dropped, then the price of their equipment would drop. And if the price of Bitcoin went up, then the price of their equipment would go up. Now, however you feel about that, I wasn't a big fan of it, but it is what it is. We used to always joke that they would always have a testing period for their new equipment that was akin to about 100 days of them mining on it before they'd send it to you. Where essentially they'd pay off the equipment before they'd send it to you. Now, I don't have proof of that. That's just a running joke. But you're exactly right. When the bull market starts to turn, or the market starts to turn around, we start going into a bull market, there seems to be a mad rush on equipment. So typically, times like right now, where we see the markets kind of down or sideways, you'll start seeing fire sales on equipment. A lot of times, the reason is because people overpurchase or they'll overcommit to purchasing when the market is up. We saw actually Core Scientific got into this issue where they overspent or mismanaged certain things when the market was up. Since then, I've heard they've been doing very, very well and have come around. But it's not an uncommon issue to have. I believe Compute North did the same thing where they overbought equipment. They found themselves on the wrong side of the market when the price corrected. So now there's a fire sale on equipment, and you have other miners or other entities come in and purchase up all that equipment at cheap prices. So now's the time to build. Now's the time to buy equipment, and we're going right into the halving. So you guys being a miner, you're going to see all your profits get cut in half. So you got to prep for that as well.
And we also all the time we get from our users those questions like, why do we need to mine when we can expect halving? And if we buy a mining contract, then it will go into zero almost. But what do you think about halving, and what can we expect from it?
I think people will overreact as usual. We'll see probably initial price increase. People are going to run up the price, and then we'll probably see a pretty large crash right afterwards. So I always typically like to look at Litecoin as almost a model of what Bitcoin goes through. For whatever reason, over the years, Litecoin has been like almost the guinea pig for all the different technologies before it gets rolled out into the Bitcoin network. So we just saw Litecoin go through a halving actually at the end of July. So the price did a massive run up at the beginning of July, and then it started crashing right before the halving, and then it crashed right afterwards, and now we're just kind of going sideways again. And I think we're going to kind of see the same thing with Bitcoin halving. We're going to see the price run up, and then we'll see it crash a bit and run sideways. It takes time for the market to adjust to the shock of it. So historically, when we see a halving happen in the spring, we typically don't see the price adjustments until the fall. So if you can typically hold on for 5 or 6 months through that initial sideways, the shock of loss, then you can typically make it through.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, great. And I think that I have one last question, but I think that as you are into Bitcoin mining industry, you probably feel enthusiastic about Bitcoin and its future, and you don't think that it will disappear one day.
You know what? I have a bit of a irreverent saying that is, he who has the most guns will win. And when it comes to Bitcoin versus a government, or cryptocurrency in general versus a government, governments typically don't look kindly at systems that mess with their monetary policy. So as Bitcoin grows in popularity and Bitcoin becomes more and more anchored as some type of currency or value store, I can see the government reacting very poorly to it, especially here in the U.S. In the near future. Now, will that be the end of it? I don't think so. The great thing about decentralized network, it is you can't really stop it. As long as there is a copy of it somewhere on Earth, it will continue to propagate. It's very much like a religion. As long as someone on Earth retains the holy text or the belief, it will continue to propagate. And it's decentralized. It's not led by any single leader or any single entity. So as far as the persistence of Bitcoin, I do think it's not going away anytime soon. The technology of mining, I think it solves some serious issues with the renewables grid. If the Department of Energy and the different power producers in this world can recognize that, I think we're going to see greater leaps and bounds in the way we balance our grids with renewables. Until then, I think we're just going to keep struggling against it. But that's going to take time. So long story short, Bitcoin, I do not believe is going anywhere. I think mining does have a place in our core infrastructure that will continue to grow and grow in adoption. But the ups and downs of the market are going to freak people out. People are going to lose a lot of money because they're going to be overly bullish when they shouldn't be. But I believe long-term, 10, 20, 30 years from now, we will find that Bitcoin mining or the pattern of Bitcoin mining will be very, very useful for the renewables grid.
Okay, great. I hope so. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Very interesting, really. And right now, as always, at the end of our shows, we have sort of a giveaway for our listeners. Guys, you are welcome to come up with your questions to Ryan. You can write them in comments. And in several days, we'll select the most interesting question. And its author will get a Bitcoin mining contract from UCAS. So good luck with that. And thank you so much, Ryan, for this discussion.
Yeah,
so
thanks for having me on.
I'll leave the link to your LinkedIn under this video so that our users will be able to find you and talk to you. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
It was great chatting.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Anna.
you. Yeah. Bye-bye.